Edmund Kemper, who would later become one of America's most notorious serial killers. Edmund Kemper's mother told him no woman would ever love him, so he found a way to make sure they would never leave. Kemper was just 8 years old when his mother started locking him in the basement every night. She said it was to protect his sisters from him. She called him a real weirdo, loud enough for him to hear through the walls. By 10, he had buried the family cat alive, dug it up, and cut off its head. At 14, he ran away to find his father. His father didn't want him. They sent him to live with his grandparents on a remote California ranch. His grandmother was no different. Constant criticism, constant control. On August 27, 1964, 15-year-old Kemper shot his grandmother in the head with a rifle. When his grandfather came home, he shot him too. When police asked why, Kemper said he wanted to see what it felt like to kill Grandma. He shot his grandfather so he wouldn't have to find out. Kemper spent 5 years in a psychiatric hospital. Doctors said he was rehabilitated and released him back to his mother. The argument started immediately, screaming matches so loud the neighbors called police. His mother told him he was worthless, that college girls would never look at him twice. Between 1972 and 1973, Kemper killed 6 young female hitchhikers. They were college students. The same women his mother said would never want him. He buried one victim's head in his mother's garden, facing her bedroom window. She always wanted people to look up to her, he said. On April 20th, 1973, he killed his mother with a hammer while she slept, decapitated her, and used her head as a dartboard. Then, he called the police and turned himself in. The killings were over. He had destroyed the thing that created him, Albert Fish, who would later become one of America's most disturbing child killers. Albert Fish's mother couldn't afford him, so she gave him away. Fish was 5 years old when his father died of a heart attack. His mother, unable to support her children alone, placed young Albert in St. John's orphanage in Washington, D.C. She thought she was saving him. Instead, she was building a monster. The orphanage was brutal. Teachers beat children until they bled, stripped them bare, and forced the others to watch. For most children, it was traumatizing. For Albert Fish, it became something far worse. He discovered he liked it. Pain fused with something in his developing mind and wired connections that should never have existed. By the time his mother finally retrieved him 5 years later, the damage was already permanent. As an adult, Fish embedded needles into his own body. Doctors found 29 lodged in his pelvis. He beat himself with a nail-studded paddle and regularly set fire to himself. But his own suffering was never enough. He needed to hear children scream. Between 1924 and 1928, Fish murdered at least 3 children. He strangled them, dismembered them, and cooked them. He sent a letter to one victim's mother describing in detail how he ate her 10-year-old daughter over 9 days. Psychiatrists identified 18 different sexual abnormalities in him, more than any case in medical history. In 1936, Fish walked to the electric chair and reportedly helped position the electrodes himself. The child his mother abandoned to save money had become America's most disturbing killer. Griselda Blanco, who would later become the most powerful female drug lord in American history. Her mother was a drunk and a prostitute. She handed her daughter a blueprint. Griselda Blanco was born in 1943 in Cartagena, Colombia. Her father was absent from the start. Her mother, Anna, was an alcoholic sex worker who moved Griselda to Medellin when she was just 3 years old, straight into one of the most violent, crime-ridden neighborhoods in the country. There was no protection at home. Anna's boyfriend sexually abused Griselda throughout her childhood. Her mother did nothing. By the time Griselda was a preteen, she was already pickpocketing on the streets to survive. At 11, she allegedly kidnapped a boy from a wealthy neighborhood and tried to hold him for ransom. When the family didn't pay, she shot him dead. As a teenager, she ran away from home to escape the abuse. She survived through theft and prostitution on the streets of Medellin, the same streets her mother had dragged her to 11 years earlier. She married her first husband at 17, a small-time criminal. It was the only world she knew. By the 1970s, Griselda Blanco had built a cocaine empire in Miami that generated $80 million a month. She ordered the murders of hundreds of people, including all 3 of her husbands. She was known as the godmother of cocaine, the most dangerous drug lord in America. a woman. On September 3rd, 2012, she was shot twice in the head outside a butcher shop in Medellin. A motorcycle assassin, her own signature method. Her mother taught her that people were disposable. She never forgot the lesson. Ariel Castro, who would later become one of America's most infamous kidnappers. He built a house of horrors, but the blueprints came from his childhood. Ariel Castro was born in 1960 in Yauco, Puerto Rico. When he was 2 years old, his father Pedro abandoned the family. It turned out he had been secretly married to a second woman, with 4 other children the entire time. His mother Lillian left for Pennsylvania to find work, and left the children behind in Puerto Rico with their grandmother. While she was gone, 5-year-old Ariel was repeatedly sexually abused by a 9-year-old boy in the neighborhood. He never told anyone. When his mother finally returned in 1966, she brought more pain with her. According to Castro's own handwritten confession, she beat him daily with belts, sticks, and her open hand, and screamed insults at him constantly. The abuse never stopped. He grew up learning that love and control were the same thing, that the people who were supposed to protect you were the people most likely to hurt you. From 2002 to 2013, Castro kidnapped 3 young women, Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus, and held them captive in his Cleveland home for up to 11 years. He chained them to walls, raped them repeatedly, beat Michelle Knight until she miscarried 5 pregnancies on purpose. He pleaded guilty to 937 charges. He was sentenced to life plus 1,000 years. 1 month later, he hanged himself in his cell. His father abandoned him. His mother beat him daily. He spent the rest of his life making sure no one ever left him again. Omar Mateen, who would later become the deadliest mass shooter in American history at the time, his father watched him fall apart for years and kept defending him every single time. Omar Mateen was born in 1986 in New York to Afghan immigrant parents. From the 3rd grade, school records described him as verbally abusive, constantly disruptive, rude, and aggressive. He was 8 years old. Teachers contacted his father, Sadiq, repeatedly. Sadiq came in, dismissed every concern, and sided with his son every time. He refused to sign consent forms for testing. He ignored every warning. At home, Sadiq ran a TV show declaring himself president of Afghanistan in exile, praising the Taliban as his warrior brothers, and modeling a worldview in which violence was righteous and America was the enemy. This was what Omar grew up watching at the dinner table. On September 11th, 2001, 14-year-old Omar cheered for the hijackers in class. The school called his father. Sadiq showed up, slapped Omar in the face in front of his classmates, then went right back to defending him. Omar was suspended 48 days across 3 schools, expelled, eventually graduated from an alternative school for students with severe behavioral problems. Nobody ever got him real help. Nobody ever held Sadiq accountable for what he was building at home. On June 12th, 2016, Omar Mateen walked into Pulse nightclub in Orlando and killed 49 people. He died in a police shootout at 5 a.m. His father raised a boy full of rage, handed him a target, and called it religion. John Edward Robinson, who would later become the internet's first known serial killer. He looked like the perfect father. His children had no idea what was happening inside the same house. John Edward Robinson was born in 1943 in Cicero, Illinois. His father Henry was an abusive alcoholic. His mother Alberta was cold, controlling, and harsh. The lesson Robinson absorbed early was simple. Project the right image, and you can do anything you want behind closed doors. He became an Eagle Scout, a choir boy. He studied for the seminary. Everyone who knew the Robinson family saw exactly what they were supposed to see. By his 20s, Robinson had already begun embezzling money from employers. He forged documents. He ran scam after scam, always presenting himself as a respectable businessman, a devoted father. Each time he was caught, he found a way to avoid real consequences. In 1984, he began targeting vulnerable women, runaways, women in crisis, women who had no one looking for them. He lured them with promises of jobs and stability. He even kidnapped a newborn baby and sold her to his own brother for $5,500. Fabricating legal adoption documents himself, he became the internet's first known serial killer, hunting victims through online chat rooms under the name Slave Master. 8 women were murdered between 1984 and 2000. Their bodies were found stuffed in barrels on his property. He was convicted in 2003 and sentenced to death in Kansas. His parents taught him that appearance was everything and accountability was nothing. He built an entire life and a body count on that foundation.